He was known as Blackjack, but Jack McDowell was one of the most colorful players of his era. A fifth overall pick out of Stanford in the 1987 MLB draft, he broke in with the Chicago White Sox that September. Even though he was late to the show, he absolutely stole it when he got there. A 3-0 record with an earned run average of 193. That fraction of a season was just a small sign of what was in store for McDowell over the next several years. A true workhorse, his name was consistently found among the league leaders in complete games, shutouts, and innings pitched. He would make 3 straight All-Star teams, earning himself the American League Cy Young Award in 1993. After 7 seasons in the Windy City, McDowell made his way to the Big Apple in 1995. It was an interesting year for Blackjack, but as the team's ace, he helped lead the New York Yankees to their first postseason berth in 14 years. He joined the Cleveland Indians in 1996 and headed back to the West Coast when he signed with the Anaheim Angels 2 years later. After pitching in just 4 games in 1999, McDowell hung up his glove at the age of 33. His playing days may be over, but his involvement in the game is alive and well. And now Jack McDowell has a game of catch with me here on Touching Base. And our kitchen is so sensitive. You could be cooking the simplest of things, and it just senses it, and you hear it throughout the whole house, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Any smoke starts coming out, and it's like, ah,
yeah. It's worse than it is. They make it seem worse than it is. But listen, man, thank you so much for doing this, especially on a Saturday. And I know we have a lot to talk about because the game has changed so much since you've played. And I know you, as well as I, are not fans of all the rule changes, but we'll get to that soon. But I want to talk to you about how it all kind of began for you. Was baseball always in your blood? Did you know? Did your dad pass it on to you? How did you get into the game of baseball?
Yeah, my dad was a football kind of track field runner growing up, but we were all baseball players. I have 2 older brothers, 7 and 8 years older than me. So I was always kind of tagging up with them to go take ground balls and play and learn all that. They both ended up playing college baseball. My oldest brother, Jim, won the College World Series in 76 at USC. Or maybe it was 78 at USC. And they both played at USC. So I got coached by my dad from T-ball all the way to high school.
Right.
And then first year in high school, I went to the same high school as my 2 older brothers did. And the varsity coach at the time did not allow 2-way players.
Oh.
I was all the way until college. I even was in college, but then they just made me a pitcher only. And I was a 2-way player. I was a really good shortstop and a pitcher. So the first year I came into high school, they said, "Oh, you're a McDowell. You're an infielder." That's all. The other 2 McDowells were infielders. Right. So I played shortstop my whole freshman year on JVs.
Yep.
But then brother Jim came over and started teaching at the high school and coaching the JVs, and then eventually coached the varsity, not the majors.
Right. Not quite yet.
Yeah. Well, so they coached me all the way till I got to college.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and speaking of college, you actually got drafted twice, I believe. You got drafted out of high school. You elected to go to Stanford, a great school, a great baseball school. And then out of Stanford, you get drafted 5th overall. And that was the 1987 draft in which Ken Griffey Jr. got drafted first, and you got drafted 5th. Did you expect to go so high? And what was the anticipation like that day waiting to be selected?
Well, I kind of knew what was going on, but didn't know who was going to pick me or who wouldn't. And then, the White Sox got me. It's funny because the Cubs had the fourth pick and the White Sox 5th pick. So whenever you had the Cubs fans and the Chicago fans, going back and forth, not liking each other and this and that, I would say, well, it's not my fault. Said, you guys picked the pick before the White Sox, so I could have gone there. You just go where people take you.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly right. And then your transition into the big leagues was a rather seemingly seamless one. I mean, you come up in September of 1987, and the little that you pitched, you really you knocked it out of the park, so to speak. 3-0 with a 193 ERA. Was the transition as simple as the stats made it look? And did you feel as though you had a lot to live up to being drafted fifth overall that same year?
Well, the one interesting thing about being drafted at that point is the huge number of players that played in the Pac 10 from the time I was a freshman through my third year and got
Right.
drafted. And there was like 7 or 8 guys already up in the big leagues. You had like, Bonds, Devereaux, all those
Yep.
dudes are up. And I'm going, okay, well, I played against those guys, so I have a chance to play pro ball. Okay, that's cool. I'll just keep going. You just keep playing, keep trying to get better, keep
Right.
moving on. And that's what baseball is truly all about, which is
Absolutely.
weird. That's another change that's been made in the game is we're not going to draft more than, 15 rounds now, but it used to be 40, 50
Yeah.
rounds. The
Yeah.
Hall of Famers, there's so many Hall of Famers that were drafted in the 30th or 40th round because baseball as a sport is not just you are the best athlete there is, you're the best athletic. No, it's about can you make transitions? Can
Yeah.
you figure out how to play the game? And can you make yourself a little bit better and smarter? And that was what baseball used to be all about, not just about, what's my exit velocity and what's my throwing
Yeah.
velocity, all this.
Yeah.
No, can you, hey, if it's a guy on third with nobody out, can you put the ball in play no matter what? Can you do
Yeah.
certain things that were really important? That
Right. And back then it was always a journey. It was always a game of learning, and now it's just a totally different story. So you battled injuries in '89, I believe, and then in 1990 you kind of really hit your stride as a mainstay and an anchor in the pitching rotation for the Chicago White Sox. And from 1991 to 1993, you made three All-Star games, three All-Star teams, and you also won the American League Cy Young Award in 1993. And not only that, you were a real workhorse because you were always consistency on the leaderboard with either complete games or innings pitched or shutouts. What do you attribute to your greatness from your prime to the early '90s to the mid '90s?
well, just trying to go out there and beat the other team and win games, you know,
Yeah,
strikes. And, that's the reason it wasn't super great ERAs. But guess what? If you're ahead, so let's say we get ahead by 3 or 4 runs, you don't just try to overpitch and get guys to strike out. You just try to throw strikes. Go ahead. See if you're going to score 4 more runs off of me. Just, because people get out.
right.
That's always teach the pitchers.
Yeah,
Little kids and stuff. I'm like, you don't have to make everybody swing and miss. You don't want to just overthrow and walk people because you're overthrowing and trying to do all this crazy stuff. I said just continue to throw strikes and force them to do something.
yeah.
Because
You
guess
got eight
what?
players behind you. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're a Hall of Famer, what is your batting average?
Right.
Oh, a little over 300. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? That means the best hitters in
Yep.
the history of baseball
7 out of 10 times.
get it 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Why is it? Because that's just the way baseball is.
Yeah.
So why are we trying to overthrow? No, you're trying to make good pitches to get guys out and make their swings not great, but make sure you're throwing strikes. Because guess
Right.
what? You got behind you that are going to get outs.
Yeah, that's why you have them, or else if it was just relying on strikeouts, you wouldn't have an outfield or an infield.
Yeah, that's strikeouts are overrated. A lot of times
They are.
that's the one stat. They've made all these stat changes,
Yeah.
but a great stat change would be, well, two of them. They're mad about RBI. RBIs don't matter, don't matter, don't matter.
Right.
Well, that's ridiculous because you get it done. That's
Yeah.
good. Strikeouts, outs are outs.
Yeah.
Okay, strikeouts are overrated, but they aren't overrated if you say you have man on third, nobody out, and you punch guys out.
That's when it matters. Right.
That is a strikeout that matters because they didn't put the ball in play.
Right. And you can still strike out three batters in an inning, but give up 5 runs. So, I mean, a strikeout isn't a true telltale of how great a pitcher actually is.
Yeah, and the way the game is now, when they're so worried about how many pitches you throw,
Right.
I
Oh,
strike a guy out. It's usually not just 3 pitches; it's usually seven
yeah.
pitches.
Yeah.
Where you strike a guy out and this and that. But guess what? You're trying to get a guy out. Throw the ball as a strike, but
Things will
throw it.
happen. Yeah. Things will happen in your favor if you let the ball get put in play because you have guys behind you. But,
Yeah, with the true metrics and all that, what a hitter's best hitting position is. Boy, he crushes balls in,
yeah.
but way you can get him. So if you can control and pound him away, he's either going to ground out or he's going to miss the ball. That kind of stuff is how you can pitch really good.
Right. To know all that. Absolutely. So when 1994 happens, you obviously have the strike going on, but it was another big year for you because in December of that year, you find out that you're going to get dealt to the Yankees, and I'm sure emotions were already high because of the strike. But you'd really made your name, made a name for yourself with the White Sox. Was it tough to leave the team that you made yourself a name with, to go to the Yankees, or were you excited to be joining the most prestigious team in baseball history?
Well, the weird thing about it is I didn't even know if it was true because it's actually illegal. If you go look, you're not allowed to do free agency or trading during strikes or lockouts.
Oh wow, I didn't even think of that. Okay.
I got traded, and I'm like, well, yeah, I know that's like, everyone knows about that, but I don't know if it's true or not, and I won't know. And I didn't know until the Yankees called me and said, okay, you got to be in Florida in 2 days. And when the whole thing ended and it was starting time. So we didn't even know how to get ready for that season or when to get ready for the season. Then it was a super short, preseason. And you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
okay, that was weird. But as far as who to play for, the reason I would have liked to have stayed with the White Sox, the Yankees, I had a fun year. It was a great year. And
You were a character on that team. That was a great memory.
the overall team was probably the best overall guys that worked together on the same thing. It wasn't a team where you had guys that went against each other or didn't like each other or things like that. Which kind of like, a lot of the teams are like that. The Yankees is probably the easiest overall team that I ever played with. But the White Sox the thing about the White Sox, when I got up there in '87, they're always like last place. And then we kind of moved forward and got better, made our first playoffs. And then, I wish they would have kept me on that team because we would have had a chance to getting better, and keep going. I don't know why they did that, but they did it. So I got the Yankees.
Yeah, they did. And then the Yankees ended up cleaning house after 95. But when you came to that team, obviously they have the big facial hair rule there. And I know that, you were always a fierce competitor, not just in your actions, but also in your look. 6'5", you always had the facial hair. And, they had the rule on the Yankees where you can only keep nothing more than a clean cut mustache. But I read somewhere that you convinced George Steinbrenner to allow you to keep your goatee. Is that true because it was such a big part of your intimidation factor?
Well, here's the true thing that happened. Okay.
Yeah.
When I got down to Florida for that first day, walked in the clubhouse, and Buck Showalter called me into his office, and he goes, "Listen, you got to shave that goatee off." And he had a shave in there, and we off in his thing. The first day I was like, okay, yeah, I know, I got to do that. When I came out of there, about 4 or 5 guys came up to me and said, listen, you got to go to George. We all want to be able to get our beards back and do that. So go talk to Steinbrenner because you're one of the guys that they make a big deal out of your goatee. Right. So you can go talk to him. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that for you guys. Let's go. And that's what I did. The first time I ever met George, I was like, hey, a bunch of guys in the team said they really want to grow back beards and stuff like that. Can we do that? Is that, and he goes, no, it's not my rule. It's the manager's rule. So go talk to Buck. And I went and talked to Buck. I said, George said it's not up to him. It's up to you. And all the players have told me this. They're pushing me to make this decision. And what we did is we had a team meeting and kind of voted. Do we want to go this way? Or do we not want to go this way? And, the majority of the guys said, yeah, let's do it. Right. So we got back to doing that for that 1 year. And here's the other funny part about it is we did good. We're still going so good. And then we went out to California and we're playing pretty solid teams with the Angels, A's, and then up to Seattle, the West Coast tour we did. And on that thing, we were I think 1-9
Right.
on that road trip. And when we got up to Seattle and lost the first game up there, Steinbrenner called us and said, "Tell him to shave all that stuff off." And we had to shave it off. That was when it stopped, is when we went 1-9. He said, "Yeah."
And then you started winning again.
Beards are taking you down.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that was the weird, that 1-9 trip. The game that I lost with the Angels, I had a no-hitter going into the 9th inning.
Right.
And there was a ground ball to Donnie. Tom Mattingly over. He makes a great play, turns through, and I had to spin around and turn and throw because it was in between first and second.
Sure. Yeah.
Spun and threw, and I was running to cover first, and it bounced. And I caught it and stepped on first all at the same time, like picked it up. And you can go back and look. It was like a boom, boom. If they would have had it, I think the guy was out because he head first slid.
Yeah.
Called him safe. And I'm like going, okay, he was safe. But then the next dude hit a double off the wall off me. They scored a run, and then another single. They scored 2 runs. We lost 2-1. And that was it. I was only up 1-0.
Yeah. And that's maybe instant replay is one of the good things that happens nowadays, that, if you had it back then, it would have changed the momentum of that game.
Well, the weird part about that is you even watch it and you can see nowadays that they're even missing those calls when they're looking at the truth.
It's bizarre. I don't know how I've seen that happen too. I don't know how that happens after all that review, but
it's very weird stuff.
It is bizarre. But so 1995, the ALDS comes around, a very big series for a number of reasons. It was the first playoff with the wild card team. It was, you had a couple of extra inning games, so it was a very intense series. It was the series that they say saved baseball in Seattle because they were able to defeat you guys. But Buck Showalter and Lou Piniella on both sides, they really pulled out all the stops to try to get, their respective team to win. They used Randy Johnson in relief a few games, and they used you in relief the last game. I know for sure the last game. I don't know if they used you in relief in any of the other games. But you essentially became, after Jimmy Key got injured, you essentially were the ace of that team. I mean, David Cohn came, I think, in August of that year. So it was really you through the whole year who was the anchor for that pitching rotation. So you got looked to in Game 5 in extra innings to come on in relief. But you had thrown only 2 days before. Was it very tough? First of all, did you expect to get asked to come on in relief in Game 5 in that critical situation? And do you think in hindsight it was a lot being asked of you to do that?
Well, I mean, it was cool that he believed I could come in there and get it done, but I didn't come in there to just be a closer. If I did, I closed the first 2 innings, but that 3rd inning, they ended up scoring the 2 runs to beat us. But it's the other thing. Go back and look at what started that inning. Joey Cora.
Yeah, Joey Cora should have been out. That was a out of the baseline.
He was out of the baseline, and Donnie tagged him.
He did get him.
Yes.
I got to watch that again.
He got him right in his back behind him. But how's the first base ump supposed to be able to know that?
Yeah, but how did the first
back when you're basically right in the, you can't see that.
You can't see that, but he did see him go out of the line, and I don't know how that ever
time out of the baseline.
Yeah, I don't know. He might have been in the moment, with Mariners, whatever. I don't know. Maybe he was a Mariners fan. I don't know how that call was blown, but then again, the bottom fell out after that happened, and if he got the call right, that could again have changed the momentum of the entire inning and possibly the series. But it is what it was. So the Yankees clean house after 95. You move on to the Cleveland Indians. Now, the Cleveland Indians, kind of the dynasty that never was. They made they won 2 pennants from 95 to 97. They really had an all-star team. In 96, when you joined, they batted 293 as a team, which is almost unheard of. They had players like, Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton, Jim Tomei, Manny Ramirez, and then they had veteran pitchers in you, Dennis Martinez, and Oral Hershiser. So you had a lot of individual talent on the team. Now, my question is, was the success of that team based on just the individual talent of all those players, or was there a team chemistry that perhaps the average fan wasn't aware of?
Well, the team chemistry was kind of negative.
Was it? Okay.
Yes, there was a lot of fights, a lot of negativity, a lot of guys going at each other all the time. That was the scariest, craziest team I was on.
Really?
But yeah, you look at the talent, it was basically an all-star team out there.
Yeah.
Everybody all-star player, and that was part of the deal. So
yeah. And it's a shame that because they were so much better. I mean, at least on paper, they were so much better than the outcomes would have you believe, because they only won 2 pennants. They probably should have won both series, but I just remember that team just kind of being an American League juggernaut at that point in time. But so as the decade comes to a close, you're kind of approaching the end of your career, and you were kind of a shadow of what you had been in the beginning of the decade, but you were still relatively young in terms of age. What would you say was the reason your career kind of took a turn towards the end of the decade like that?
well, I got messed up by the doctor who
Yeah.
did surgery on me that I didn't need a surgery, and they severed nerve and killed one of my muscles in my forearm.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, when I was with the Indians, and looking back on it, it was weird because the soreness was on this side,
Right.
which is the your tennis elbow side. That's not a pitching side, but it was sore. But if you go back and look at the last couple starts before I had to get out of there, I was still throwing good, still getting guys out, but it was just painful. It was weird. It was like
Yeah.
a nerve thing going on. And last year, I felt the same type of thing in my left elbow,
Right.
and it was neck. And I looked it up and studied, and it was a neck thing that went all the way down.
Wow.
And I went, oh, it's just that's causing the pain. It wasn't something that they could go get. Well, they said, oh, we'll go in there and we'll fix your elbow. And they went in and
So they were fixing something that wasn't even there.
So yeah, and they severed the nerve, killed the muscle in my forearm. It's still, that's not there anymore. So I didn't even know if I was going to be able to keep pitching. But when I kept pitching with it, I ended up overusing my shoulder rather than my elbows, or my shoulder a little bit. It just kind of put me down, and I kept going with that, and then I just said, okay, you know what?
Enough's enough. Yeah, because you were a lot better than that. Like, yeah, it was sad to see it take a turn like that, but I'm glad I got some clarity as to why. Who would you say during your major league career had the biggest impact on you? Whether it was an agent, a manager, a fellow teammate, who would you say had a big impact on you?
Well, it's just the guys that you hung out with, and it was cool. And you know what? One of the coolest thing parts is when guys that you played against on other teams came to your team,
Yeah.
or I moved teams, and all of a sudden, there's guys on that team that you played against for a long time. It was kind of pretty cool to meet guys like that.
Yeah, that's really neat. Talk to me about life since your playing days. I know you're big into, you're a musician, you're big into the guitar. Life as a family man. What's it been like the last 25 or so years?
All just coaching baseball too. That's really all I've done at every level. T-ball,
Awesome.
to pro ball, and lots of little league, lots of travel ball. Did high school for my first round of kids and all that stuff. So it's kind of what I've done, but that's what I'm doing now. It'd be cool. I feel like I know so much about this game. That's what I was going to do either way. I was just going to stay in the game of baseball and to teach people what I've learned, known, and been able to, in coaching with kids and watching them as they go forward and move up and get better, and you see what you can tell them that actually does the truth to help them be better players,
right.
Better hitters, better throwers, better defenders. So you learn a lot about the coaching thing and what is really good about it. And I feel like I know so much at every level. I could do whatever you know. And
Right.
the one thing that I really want to do that I feel like I'm really good at is being a base coach and
Yeah.
teaching the running, because that's kind of disappeared.
Yeah. It has. It has a little bit. I'd love to see you in that role. I think you'd be great at it. I'd love to see you return to being a base coach, whether major leagues or wherever. But yeah, it's cool. It's got to be cool and rewarding to see what you've passed on to the kids and see them grow and see them get better, knowing that you had a role to play in their baseball lives. That's got to be really rewarding as well.
Yeah, well, I've had some funny kids too, funny things said. Like I think it was the last year or the year before, that's doing travel ball with my kid who was 12 and there was 13,
Right.
and he was playing travel, and I remember seeing a couple swings on the hitter, and
Yeah.
I go to the third baseman and I go, hey, move over, 3 steps over. The next pitch, boom, one hopper right to
Right
him.
at him. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all the guys on the bench were like, "How do you know that? How did you know that, coach?" And I'm like, This has been my whole life, this
Awesome.
baseball, and I can read what's going to happen. You try to figure out what's going to happen and where the guy hit the ball, how his swing is, certain things
All
you can tell.
situations and tendencies, and I'm glad to
Yeah.
see you're still a part of it and passing on your knowledge. So now moving on to today's game, a lot of rule changes this year, and really over the past 10 years or so, there have been a lot of rule changes. You didn't have a lot when you played. I think it was just interleague play was a big one, and the wild card team. But I mean, over the last 10 years, it's been a whole renovation. Are there any rule changes that you can't stand? I mean, I know you probably don't like a lot of them, but are there any that just get under your skin that you think are not good for the game and should have never happened?
Well, I mean, the pitch clock thing, I don't know. I mean, if you go back and look at the way I used to do it, a lot of people have always said, "Oh yeah, you pitched like a pitch clock thing before it even started. You just
Right.
got the ball, got the sign, and went. You didn't
Yeah.
take time. All right, that's fine. Okay, then I wouldn't have had to make any big adjustment to the way I did things, like some
Right.
guys have to do. And
Yeah.
it's been a little negative to them this year. It's been a weird thing for a lot of hitters and a lot of pitchers having to make changes on all that.
Yeah.
But the rest of the stuff, like the third to first move, I got a lot of pickoffs on my fake to third, go to first moves.
Yeah. That's right.
And they got rid of that part of it. And that was kind of a bummer. I'm really frustrated that they're talking about not allowing the left-handers to do their pickoffs in the
Yeah.
future. They've already put that down in the minor leagues. You're not allowed. You have to step off to throw. They have to just step off throws. They can't just make a real good
Yeah.
move
Then you
like.
give yourself away, and it almost negates the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a thing that I just don't understand. And that's just something where you just, as a runner, you had to really read it,
Yeah.
understand it, and
Hmm.
as a pitcher, you really had to measure the same movement as your throw to home, and that
Right.
was a cool thing you had to do. All those
Yeah.
things are cool. They're very
Yeah.
smart. They're getting rid of all the smart stuff.
Smart stuff. Andy Pettit, your teammate, was great at that. He was the best there was at that left-handed pickoff move. Um, and the only one that I could really kind of understand, or the one that I think it is maybe good for the game, as much as it slows it down, is the instant replay. I mean, I like the idea that they get calls right now, or sometimes they don't. We all know sometimes they still look at the video and they still can't get the call right. But I think a call should be right as much as a blown call is a part of the game. I think the instant replay is a good one, but there's some other ones that I think just negate the game. Like with this pitch clock, if you violate it, the penalty is that you have a ball against you, or if you're a batter and you take too long getting back into the batter's box, you have a strike against you. That means a pitcher can now throw 2 strikes and get a strikeout. It just doesn't sit well with me in terms of what the rules of baseball have always been. But there are a lot of pitchers this year, like Sandy Alcantara, Max Scherzer, Alek Manoah, guys who were very good last year, who through the first third of this season are really struggling. And you tend to wonder, does the pitch clock have anything to do with kind of throwing off their rhythm? Would you say it does?
Well, it probably has some mental differences, because
Right.
if you have the time that you've always had to mentally prepare for the next pitch.
Yeah.
That was, and I've always, that's funny because I've always, even before this pitch clock stuff, I've always taught kids and, older kids,
Right.
the real is of guess what? Okay. From little league all the way through college, the coaches call your game.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to be on the mound looking for the catcher to make a sign, and you aren't going to know what pitch you're going to throw until you see that.
Yeah.
And so I had to teach them, okay, even when you're doing a bullpen, what I want you to do is, okay, right before you throw the pitch, I look and just go, okay, I'm going to see where I want this pitch to go the last 5 feet. Boom.
Right.
Just real quick, fastball away. Boom. Okay. So that gives them a time where they can look at their sign and go, okay, fastball away. Boom. It's just real quick, but you get some kind of mental prep to do it.
And without the outside factor of the pitch clock. Yeah.
And I learned that, and I forget what umpire it was, but there was an umpire during our time that he would make calls, but he wouldn't go strike. He wouldn't put his hand out and he wouldn't yell it, so you couldn't really hear it. So I'd throw a pitch and get the ball back, and I go, well, was it a strike or a ball? Wait. And I'd have to turn around and wait until the scoreboard
yeah.
back, and then my mental thing was not thinking. I'm like, okay, so that showed me that when I threw it and I go strike or a ball, boom, I mentally prepared immediately for the next pitch. Oh, I threw a ball, now it's 2-1. Okay, I'm going to throw this now, and then you got some mental preparation. Right then, you could do it. You were calling your own game in pro ball, so.
Too bad they can't just do that without the pitch clock. That sounds like it would be much more helpful for the pitcher anyway. Any favorite teams you're following this year? Any players that have surprised you, or any teams or players you think are going to do well come year's end?
I'm just, I just watch whatever's on and just check it out, the whole thing. I'm not into a team or all that.
Right.
That's the crazy funny thing too, is we're growing up in Los Angeles. Well, you knew who your teams were. We had the Lakers, the Dodgers, and the Rams. We're all pretty good growing up. And now,
especially back then
in Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, what baseball team? Some of them are okay. We're Atlanta. Some of them are Washington. Some of them are Florida. And you don't know what their favorite teams are.
It's true. Yeah, some of those the Southeast. I mean, really only has. You don't count Florida. I don't really count. But the Southeast is more about college football than it is about baseball. I would love to see a team go to Nashville or one more major city down there would be great. But
Charlotte is pushing for that, and I know that the Nashville has seen that Dave Stewart has that group of billionaires that want to buy the new team and take it out.
Right.
It's interesting because he put Mattingly on his list. Did you ever see that earlier?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he came out and he said, okay, we're contacting Don Mattingly, and he's going to be our helper when this team comes to how we're going to get ready for it.
Oh, wow.
I contacted Donnie. I said, give me Dave's number, because if they're going to run this team and run it old school, like we used to play, like the real
part of it,
the real way, we'll just crush everybody.
Yeah.
Baseball is the one sport where it is not just about who's the most athletic group out there, because every other sport, if you have better athletes overall, you're going to kill the other team.
Right.
But in baseball, it's just about adjustments and end result. It's not about, I'm so athletic, or this guy throws so hard. Well, does he have his command to get guys out, or is he not going to walk a lot of guys? Or is their defense going to make the plays? Are they going to base run positively to score a couple extra runs because they ran the bases smart? It's just, that's the way baseball is.
Yeah, it's a cerebral game that's all about situations and tendencies, and the physical stature of a player can only get you so far. It really is a team game, and it's an intellectual game at that. But
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jack, my friend, thank you so much for doing this, especially on a Saturday and taking time out of your weekend. I will absolutely stay in touch. Feel free to, call whenever, and I will keep you posted. I'll probably get this off and running by next week, and you'll be the first to know when it airs. So thanks again for doing this, man. I'm really happy to hear your story, and I'm glad things are going well for you, my friend.
All right. Well, thanks for getting to me, man.
All right, Jack. Take care. Stay in touch, buddy.
All right. See ya.
Bye now. Take care.